see. Yeah, it's setting up my meeting. Not yet done, it says. Now it says being streamlined. So good. And let's check here. And it is indeed good here. So I'm going to close Facebook. And we're going to just get going while I set up my cell phone also to access Facebook. Okay, and we are good here. All right, so we'll get going after this short prayer to the special master. Om Ajnanatimarandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So welcome once again, dear devotees, to the class here. Thank you so much, Namazya Mataji, also for joining us. And let us get going. So what is the verse for today?
4.16.
4.16
is the vote from India, and that is correct. Our Meera Mataji has also joined us here, so I think we should get started and share the screen with her. Okay, so Krishna is saying to Arjuna in chapter number 4 of the Bhagavad-gita, Kim karma kim akarmiti kavayopya atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajkyatva mokhyase shubha. Kim karma kim akarmiti kavayopya atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajkyatva mokhyase shubha. Kim karma kim akarmiti kavayopya atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokhyase shubha. And then going into the word meanings here, Kim, what is? Karma, action. Kim, what is? A karma, inaction. Iti, thus. Kavayaha, the intelligent. Api, also. Atra, in this matter. Mohitaha, are bewildered. Tat, that. Te, unto you. Karma, work. Pravakshyami, I shall explain. Yat, which. Gyatva, knowing. Mokshyase, you will be liberated. Ashubhat, from ill fortune. So where does Krishna talk about Mokshashe Ashubhat? Does he say something like that somewhere else in Bhagavad Gita?
66.
66.
Oh,
Sarvaman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papyebhyo Mokshayami Navasuchaha. Right? So he's saying Mokshayami, right? Pravakshami, so Gyatva, Yach Gyatva Mokshyase Shubhat. He says that also in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 to Arjuna. And let me bring it up here. Chapter 9 from Veda page. And he said, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yaj gyatma mokhyase shubhat. Right? So exactly the same words he speaks here. Yaj gyatma mokhyase shubhat. So he's, in 9th chapter, he's going to elaborate a little bit more on this. Right? Jnanam vijnana sahitam. So, Gyan and Vigyan, knowledge and applied knowledge or real knowledge. Pravakshamya, I'm going to say, speak. Pravakshyami, I'm going to tell you, I will explain it to you. Here also the word Pravakshyami is there, right? So there's a lot of commonality between those two. Okay, so what is the meaning of Mohita?
Bewildered.
So would you like to give your son the name Mohit? Right? So sometimes you just give the names like that, unless somebody is really thinking that this child is going to be Mohit by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a different thing, right? That Mohit, and unless it's there, it just means you are bewildered. And we know about the Mohini Roop of Krishna, right? And that bewildered whom?
And the asuras.
The Asuras and the Ashuras, right? And then later on in Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll hear that there was another time he comes as, when he comes as Mohini, he also bewilders Lord Shiva. In that he comes as a beautiful lady, Mohini. Okay, so that te unto you. Pravakshyami means?
I shall explain.
I shall explain. So next time you ask me a question, you have to use the word, please Pravakshyami. Will you Pravakshyami? Just kidding. Okay, yas gyatva mokshasya shubha. So he says that, knowing this, that kim karma, kim akarmeti, what is action and what is inaction, right? You will understand that. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what is action, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So now for the next couple of weeks when we're going to have these classes, we're going to talk more and go deeper into karma, right? Because chapter number 4 is action, right? It's a chapter about karma, continuous transcendental knowledge, right? And then chapter number 5 will again talk about, go further deeper into the karma. So purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Action in Krishna consciousness is to be executed in according with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Right? And what was the 15th verse? We did 15th verse last week. Right? And let's bring it up. 15th verse. Evam gyatva kritam karma purver api mumukshubhihi kuru karmeva tasmatvam purve purvataram kritam. Right? We have talked about purva and purvataram. Your immediate past and the long, long past. So purvataram, from the very, very long time ago, it was talking about Ishkvaku, right? So he says, I first instructed this science to the sun god Vivashwan, who in turn gave it to Ishkvaku. And then Ishkvaku entered, Manu, and then Manu gave it to Ishkvaku, and like that, in that disciplic succession. So he's saying that over here, Prabhupada is saying in the purport that in the examples of the previous devotee, that you have to do it in the previous devotee. And that's what he's saying here, the purva, previous ones, right? Who are the devotees? The mumukshuvis, who want to be liberated. He's saying that if you do according to what the previous devotees are done, right? So I'm just continuing to explain that to you. Why such action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. So there'll be more texts that are going to come there. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in the line of disciplic succession, as explained in the beginning of this chapter. Right? Evam parampara praptam, he had said, right? Parampara. So there's a session way of in which you do these things. The system of Krishna consciousness was first narrated to sun god Vivashwan. The sun god explained it to his son Manu, and Manu explained it to his son Ishkvaku, and the system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Krishna consciousness directly. Because of direct instruction of the Lord to Krishna and Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps of Arjuna is certainly not bewildered. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect and experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by the Lord himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Bhagavatam 6.3.19. No one can manufacture religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlad, Bhishma, Sukhdev Goswami, Yamraj, Janak, and Bali Maharaj. So what is the common, how are they clubbed, all these? What is one common name for them? Who are these authorities?
Maharajas.
Mahajan.
Mahajan, right? Right? Bhishmo, Kapilo, Manuhu, right? Vaya Sakir Vayam, right? Yamraj was speaking in the 6th chapter, 6th canto to the to the Yam Dutas who were bewildered because Vishnu Dutas would not allow them to take the soul of Ajamil away. In that context, we have learned about that. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self-realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. Hari Om, that's it. So here, let's go back to our words again. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopya atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshami yach gyatva mokshase shubhat. Right? So Krishna starts talking about doing and non-doing in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. And I think it is verse 47, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yeah, that's the one. Do you recognize this verse?
Yes.
Right, the all famous verse. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sangostva karmani. So what is the meaning of ma in
Not.
Sanskrit? Ma means not, right? Ma means not. So there's not. So there's strict instructions that Krishna is giving. So he's saying, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Ma is never. Consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and ma, never be attached to not doing your duty. Okay? So not doing your duty is, what is the Sanskrit here for not doing the duty?
Karma.
Akarma. Very nice. So here in this chapter, Krishna is saying, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavyopi mohita. So he's saying that in order, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. And he's using the word mohita. So mohita means completely lost it. cannot understand. Cannot make out what exactly is happening, right? So about mohita, we also hear about the Brahma Vimohana Leela. Not only was Brahma mohita, he was vimohita, completely bewildered. And so his first bewilderment is that, for his own self, where he's thinking that, who is this little Krishna? This cannot be Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am so powerful. And let me steal away his, his cowherd boys and his cows and calves, like that, right? And then Krishna then expands himself as all those cowherd boys and the calves, and then it's time for Brahma to be confused and bewildered, right? So this vimohan happens all the time, right? So it's a huge thing where somebody as intelligent as Brahma, right? He has created this entire universe for us, and he is getting bewildered. So this verse is saying that what is action and what is inaction, even these big people are getting bewildered by that, right? Now, if somebody might just go back and look at 247, which we read like a year ago, I think. So there we are saying that, akarma, he's saying that, is not doing anything. Mate sangosta askorani, do not be attached to not doing your duty. So akarma is not doing your duty, right? So if somebody is not doing a duty, it's very easy to pinpoint. Can you give me some examples of people not performing duties?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Arjuna in the beginning said that I don't want to fight, and he being a Kshatriya, he is supposed to fight.
He's supposed to fight. Very good.
Yeah.
Right. So he is, yes, good example from the Shastras. Any other example from real life where you see you not performing the duty?
Hare Krishna Mataji,
Hare Krishna.
the political leaders, if you see what they're supposed to do, they are not doing those duties. Means
Yes, a king can be like that and not perform his duties, right? And just spend his time enjoying life like that, right? So yeah, that is also not performing duties. What other duties are there?
Mataji, in the first canto also, in the 17th or 16th chapter, 17th chapter, Mataji, he says when Yudhishthira is performing his duties so well, but these days Srila Prabhupada has written in the purport that these days the politicians are not doing their duty according to their dharma, and they are getting involved in their self interest.
Self-interest, right? And so they are just enjoying, pleasure seekers, right? And so there's, yeah. So you gave a good example of somebody doing it and then Prabhupada pointing out not doing it. But give me some other examples from real life. What could be some other examples? You don't have any duties?
We think that we are performing our duty, but we are
Yes.
not really performing our duty.
Right? Like a student not doing his homework,
Yeah.
right? Is not performing his duty, right? A policeman not taking care and sleeping on his seat and not doing his work is an example of not performing one's duty. So there is nothing, there is nothing which is a rocket science about not doing the duty and not being able to understand that he's not doing his duty, right? I mean, politicians are, corrupt. This is Kali Yuga, to be expected, but it's not a rocket science that they are not doing the duty. So what is it we could understand as normal people? What is it that, that is bewildering the kavis, right? Over there, right? So we have to understand here that there are two things: there's material and then there is spiritual, okay? And those are two very different realms, and they are under the jurisdiction of very different rules and regulations there, right? So akarma, when we understand and when we take a word from any particular language, right, and then we know the meaning and then try to use the meaning in other contexts also, it might not fit, okay? For example, let's take an example here. I'll give an example. Let me share my screen here with you. So let us take this. I'll make it a little bit bigger so that you all can read it. Can you see my screen, blank screen?
Yes.
Okay. And here it says, this is a very famous saying from the Bible. Right? Anybody heard of this ever before? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? And basically what this particular verse means is that the spirit or the soul is willing to do devotional service to the Lord. It's willing to do that, but the flesh is weak. So what is the meaning of that? The flesh is weak is that
Body is weak, Mataji.
The body is not strong.
the body is weak,
Yes,
right? Yeah. So what that means is that it's not that, well, the spirit is, and it can be taken literally also in the sense that sometimes they say that, I'm a young man in an old body. So the heart is still young, and the heart is still young, but the body is not supporting the desires that you have in the heart, right? And for example, from our Shastras, there's a very famous verse which I might not remember completely, but it says, Bala vasta krida maganam, taruna vasta taruni maganam, vidha vasta chinta maganam. So what that means is that when you are in childhood age, bala avastha. So when you are in the childhood age, krida maganam. Krida means to play. So children are always playing. Maganam means they're completely engrossed in doing that. Taruna vasta, youth. Taruni maganam, yuvati. So in the youth, men will be after women. And they'll be constantly thinking about women and, how to pursue them, how to enjoy them, or whatever, right? So, Balavasta, Krida Maganam,
Kridamaganam.
Vridhavastha.
Purnivastha, yeah. Then Vridhavastha, Chinta Maganam. So when you go to the old age, then you are focusing and you chinta, right? You are worried.
Right.
And so this is how it progresses, because as we grow old, it will be like, what if I become completely, incapable of doing my daily chores? Who's going to take care of me? Right? Will I have, I'm going to retire. So how am I going to live without this? What if social security is not there? What if the thieves come? What if I get cancer and this and that? What if my spouse dies? Then how am I going to live alone? All these chintas are there, right? In the Vridhavastha. And this is how it goes, right? However, Kali Yuga is so messed up. It's so messed up that in Kali Yuga, even kids have got Chinta Maganam, and even kids undergo trauma and they go and see psychiatrists. Why? Parents are divorced, right? And extreme pressures on the head of the child. And so Balavastha, Chinta Maganam, right? And then Vridhavastha Krida Madhanam, right? In the old age, you're old. As a retired couple, what are they doing? Well, after retirement, I want to go to Las Vegas. What do you want to do? I want to play. Like that. So in the Vridhavastha also, they want to play. Or they want a young girl like that and enjoy. So they go, this, that, all that kind of stuff. So, but what happens is, I remember a surgeon I knew, he was working in one of the Gulf countries and where people have a lot of money, but then old age catches up with them still there. And so they used to come and there, in some of the countries, it's reverse dowry as compared to India. India, the girl has to pay, right? And there, the girl's father has to pay the dowry to get the girl. The groom has to pay the dowry to get the wife. So a rich man, even though very old, could get married to a young girl because he has the money to pay the dowry, right? So that used to happen, but this girl is very young and the man is very old, and this man would come to the doctor and say, "Make me young." How can the doctor make you young, right? They can do this and that, but they can't make you completely young, right? So the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So it happens in our day-to-day lives also. Spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. In devotional service also it happens that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So when we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and, take a shower and sit down to chant, the spirit is willing. The spirit wants to chant. But what is the flesh doing? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Sleeping.
Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. This is what happens. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So even though the spirit might want to pursue devotional service, because the spirit is encaged in it is embodied living being. The spirit is inside the material body, and which has got the mind, which will bring up all the desires. Right? I was talking to one of my godbrothers yesterday, and he said, not talking, actually emailing, and he said that, when I sit down to chant, and as soon as I sit down to chant, I am many light years away. So light years, so far away his mind goes, like 1 light year is the distance light will take. A distance the light will move in 1 year. Light comes so fast, isn't it? You flip the switch and immediately there's light, the whole room, right? I mean, water you can see takes some time to move, but light is very quick. And so the distance that light takes to travel in 1 year is known as light year. So he says, I'm many light years away. Spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. That is what it means. Now, going back to our context of kim karma kim akarmeti, where akarma mato sangosto akarmani, in 2.47, Krishna is saying that do not be attached to not doing your duty. And here he's saying that, karma and akarma, people get bewildered by trying to understand that, right? So here's the thing, that we should not try to understand devotional context from the dictionary. You don't just take it from this dictionary. Actually, this applies to many other places as well. So if this verse to be, now sometimes, nowadays there is Google Translator, right? You go to Google and you it'll translate everything for you, right? Now, 20 years ago, these computer-based translators were not very good, right? And if they will be able to pick up a word and give the translation in that language, but there is a lot more to be added there, because depending on the context and things like that, right? So in Russian language, if you translate this just by taking the words word by word, right? So if you translate that into Russian and then translate it back again to English, then this can happen. Not that it happened, but this can happen. So you see what was being said over here and what is being said over here is completely different, right? So from the language, that's why when Prabhupada's books are translated, they're very, very particular about keeping and retaining the essence. So one has to remember, the semantics, the meaning, and what exactly is being meant. And that is why we need a spiritual master, in the disciplic succession to explain all these things to us. And that is what Krishna is telling all along from the first chapter, that it was evam, from a long time, evam parampara praptam, evam rajarishyo vidu. So they have been learning it through parampara, and that is the reason that the spirit should not get translated into vodka, because Germans use spirit, it is vodka, right? Spirit also means alcohol, like that. So the semantics have to be maintained. So there it means, yes, in 2.47, in the context of what Krishna is talking, he's talking in the context of Arjuna is saying, I don't want to fight the war. And he's telling him about his duty. This is what his duty is. Don't get too attached to the fact that I won't do anything. And that is perfectly good. He has already done, right? Arjuna is known by the Gandiva. And he has set aside the Gandiva. He's put it aside. Right? And he's sitting on the back of the chariot. So he's doing that, right? So we have to understand that when we look at the verse, that today's verse, we are not talking about akarma as somebody not doing his work. That is too simplistic. And this is not something that will bewilder the kavis. So then what exactly is a kavi? Who do you think is a kavi? Give me examples of some kavis.
Kabir.
Kabir is a poet. Very good. Kavi. Okay.
Surdas.
Surdas.
Mataji in Bengal, like Rabindranath Tagore.
Rabindranath Tagore.
But Premchand has written stories also.
Premchand has written stories. Good point.
How about Bhagavad-gita itself?
Bhagavad-gita is a kavi. Right? So we use, we use the word kavi for poets, right? And to understand that what exactly is a kavi. Actually, kavi comes in Bhagavad-gita more than once, not over here. It'll come later also, right? And when Krishna is talking about his opulences, right? And let's just go there and bring that up. Okay, here we go. Am I sharing my screen? Vrishinam vasudevosmi pandavanam dhananjayaha muninam appi aham vyasaha kavinam ushana kavihi. So Vrishninam, among the descendants of Vishnu, Vasudeva, Krishna in Dwarka. Asmi, I am. Pandavanam, of the Pandavas. Dhananjaya, Arjuna. Muninam of the sages, api also, aham I am, Vyasa the compiler, Vyas the compiler of all Vedic literature. Kavinam of all great thinkers, Ushna Kavi the thinker. Right? So Prabhupada translates that and he says, of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. So son of Vasudeva is Vasudev, Vrishni. And of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyas, and among the great thinkers, I am Ushna, right? Now, Ushna, you will know, is also another name for Shukracharya, who was the spiritual master of Bali Maharaj, right? So, Kavi is also here equated to great thinkers, right? So, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and Baldev is Krishna's immediate expansion. Both Lord Krishna and Baldev appeared as sons of Vasudev, so both of them may be called Vasudev. From another point of view, because Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, all the forms of Krishna that appear elsewhere are his expansions. Vasudev is Krishna's immediate expansion, so Vasudev is not different from Krishna. It is to be understood that Vasudev referred to in this verse of Bhagavad Gita is Baldev or Balram, because he is the original source of all incarnations, and thus he is the sole source of Vasudev. The immediate expansions of Lord are called Swamsha, personal expansions, and there are also expansions called within Amsha or separated expansions. Among the sons of Pandu, Arjuna is famous as Dhananjaya. He is the best of men and therefore represents Krishna. Among the Munis or learned men conversant in Vedic knowledge, Vyas is the greatest because he explained Vedic knowledge in many different ways for the understanding of the common mass of people in this age of Kali. Vyasa is also known as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, Vyasa also represents Krishna. Now, coming to Kavis. Kavis are those who are capable of thinking thoroughly on any subject matter. That is what a Kavi is here. Among the Kavi, Ushna or Shukracharya was the spiritual master of the demons. He was extremely intelligent and far-seeing politician. He actually comes from the dynasty of Bhrigu. Thus, Shukracharya is another representative of the opulence of Krishna. So here Krishna is trying to explain his opulences to Arjuna, and how do I understand those opulences? So he's saying, okay, if you take the best of any and every category and look at the best, I am like that, right? So among the Pandavas, if you look like who's the closest can come close to Krishna? Arjuna, right? Similarly, among the Kavis, who's the closest? If I try to think what is Krishna's intelligence and capability to think about thoroughly about the object, well, something like how Shukracharya is, Krishna is even better than him, right? So he's the best of all, like that. So he's saying Kavi, right? Now the interesting thing is that in Bhagavad-gita, so this is from the material perspective, right? This is material perspective. So when Vaishana Mataji gave the example that Premchand also wrote some stories, you know, we might just think, but aren't we talking about Kavi? Aren't we talking about poem? Aren't we talking about poetry? I don't think Premchand wrote some poetry, but that's not the meaning of the word Kavi. Kavi is this, that he's capable of thinking thoroughly on any subject matter. So if somebody is thinking about economics very deeply, then he's a Kavi, right? So Kavis are things that who will be able to think deeply about a certain specific matter in the material world. That is what it is. Now, Shukracharya was a politician, also giving political knowledge to Bali Maharaj. He was saying, hey, this is Vaman Dev, this is Vishnu, he'll come and take away all your things, right? He was purely giving him, he's not a devotee. He was purely giving him material knowledge, right? However, when we talk about the real Kavi, Krishna is the real Kavi. And in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Aniyam Samanusmaridyaha Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. Right? So, what he's saying is that Kavim Puranam, I am the oldest of the Kavis. So, all the oldest of the Kavis, so he's doing some poetry. Now, what is the poetry that Krishna is telling us? Krishna gave the poetry in 4 shlokas to Brahma, which was the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. In 4 shlokas, he gives there, right? Arjuna, 700 verses, Bhagavad Gita, right? So the real Kavi that we talk about is one who is topping or writing on spiritual topics, right? In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a verse which says Uttama Shloka Vartaya. Uttama Shloka, tam means andhakar or ignorance. Ut means beyond. So beyond the darkness of ignorance or beyond the darkness of this material world, if you go to that other side, which is the transcendental, right? Uttama Shloka. So shlokas can be, of the material world, like khirki khuli, zulfe giri, right? That's from the material world. But Uttama will be shlokas, which will be about the God. Vasudeve Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Janyata Ashuvera, Gyam Jnanam Chayat Hetukam, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Right? This is also poetry. That is also poetry. But the material poetry is for the material thing. So those are not real kavis. Right? The real kavis are, those who are writing Uttama Shlokas, those who are writing shlokas which are themselves transcendental. So that is where Vyasdeva comes into picture, right? Vyasdeva, and who wrote so many of the scriptures. Prabhupada also mentions that in the purport here. And then of all the kavis, who is the best of the kavis? Of course, Krishna is the best, right? Kavi Puranam Anushashitaram. So he's a Kavi Puranam, right? He's a Kavi, the best of all the kavis. So we have to keep in mind that Kavi is that, right? So our verse for today, if we go back here, he's saying, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune, right? So we have to understand what actually what actually karma is, what actually akarma is. Otherwise, we will be always bewildered, right? For example, if you go back and look at our one of the previous verses which we had, and let me bring it up here, which said that, men, he talks about, being freed of all fear and attachment, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Right? So text number 12. Now, this is the one that I wanted to bring up over here. That men in this world, Kankshata karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. So he's saying that men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. There is a misconception about gods or demigods in this material world, and men of less intelligence, although passing as great scholars, right? Men of less intelligence, although passing a kavi, right? They could be writing poetry, which is not taking you to complete devotional service and maybe, taking you halfway through, only to Brahma Jyoti. Take these demigods to be various forms of the Supreme Lord. Actually, the demigods are not different forms of God, but they are God's different parts and parcel. God is one and the parts and parcel are many. The Veda says, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman, right? So the Vedas say Nityo Nityanam, God is one. Ishvara Parma Krishna, the Supreme God is one, Krishna. And the demigods are delegated with powers to manage this material world. These demigods are all living entities. Nityanam, with different grades of material power, they cannot be equal to the Supreme Lord Narayan, Vishnu or Krishna. Anyone who thinks that gods and demigods are on the same level is called an atheist or Pashandi. Even the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. In fact, the Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva. Shiva Vrinchinu Tam Paranyam. Yet, curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism. Iha Devata denotes powerful men or demigod of this material world. Iha means this. But Narayan, Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not belong to this world. He's above, Uttam, right? He's above or transcendental to material creation. Even Sripad Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, maintains that Narayan or Krishna is beyond this material creation. However, foolish people, that means Hritajnana, worship the demigod because they want immediate results. They get results, but they do not know that those results so obtained are temporary and are meant for less intelligent persons. The intelligent person in this is in Krishna consciousness, and he has no need to worship the paltry demigods for immediate temporary benefits. An interesting thing about these results, which are obtained from the demigods, the gifts that you get from the demigods, they are not going to give you ultimate happiness, right? For example, if somebody was to ask that question, who is unhappy? And the immediate answer will come was, I think the poor people are unhappy. Why? Because they don't have any money to eat. They don't have a good place to live. They don't know anything about their future. They don't have got millions of dollars stashed in their bank balances to take care of them at the later stage in life. So they are unhappy, right? But it is not so, right? After we give them $1 million, they will still be unhappy. Because now with so much of money comes the additional problems of, how do I keep this money? How do I expand this money? What if somebody takes that money from me? What if somebody wants to borrow it, and this and that, like that, right? So all these gifts that are given by demigods, they ultimately lead to misery only. So in this world, however, human society is mad after temporary things such as material opulence of possessing land, family, and enjoyable paraphernalia. To enjoy such temporary things, people worship the demigods or powerful men in human society. If a man gets some ministership in the government by worshipping a political leader, he considered that he has achieved a great boon. All of them are therefore kowtowing to the so-called leaders of big guns in order to achieve temporary boons, and they indeed achieve some temporary boons because they do not know Ishvara Parama Krishna. They should really be running after Krishna, and Krishna will give. Such foolish men are not interested in Krishna consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. They are all after sense enjoyment, and to get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they are attracted to worshipping empowered living entities known as demigods. This verse indicates that people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. They are mostly interested in material enjoyment, and therefore they worship some powerful living entity. Okay, so when people are doing these kinds of activities, right, that go to a demigod, please that demigod, and get some temporary and immediate and temporary relief, right? So then they are not going to benefit permanently from that. And this kind of activity is actually condemned. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu condemns that, and he says that, you should not be doing these kind of activities. And so let me bring up a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita here, and we'll talk about a very beautiful way in which it is narrated there. So here we go. Karma ninda karma tyaga sarva shastra kahe. Karma hai ta prema bhakti Krishna ka bhuna hai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right? Karma ninda, condemnation of fruitive activities. Karma tyaga, renunciation of fruitive activities. Sarva Shastre Kahe is announced in every revealed scripture. Karma haite, from fruitive activities. Prema bhakti, devotional service and ecstatic love. Krishna, for Krishna. Kabu nahe, can never be achieved. In every revealed scripture, there is condemnation of fruitive activities. It is advised everywhere to give up engagement in fruitive activities, for no one can attain the highest goal of life, love of Godhead, by executing them. Purport: in the Vedas, there are three khandas or divisions: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. The Karma Kanda portion stresses the execution of fruitive activities. But ultimately, it is advised that one abandon both Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, speculative knowledge, and accept only Upasana Kanda or Bhakti Kanda. One cannot attain love of Godhead by executing Karma Kanda or Jnana Kanda. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate. So those who are pursuing the Jnana Kanda section of the Vedas, mam bahunam, after many births. Vasudeva sarvamiti, that Krishna is everybody. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, those kind of Mahatmas are very rare to find. Right? And Mahishnanam Sahasresu Kaschit Yatati Siddhaya Siddhanam, right? Kaschim Mam Veti Tatvataha. So he says from thousands of people who are endeavoring perfection, only one might, succeed. And out of those who succeed, even one might know me factually in truth. And which is what? Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tyakta deham punar janma naiti mamiti. So Arjuna, right? So to understand what is happening, right? So it's going to take time. But by dedicating one's karma or fruitive activity to the Supreme Lord, one may be relieved from the polluted mind, and becoming free from mental pollution helps elevate one to the spiritual platform. Then, however, one needs the association of a pure devotee, for only by a pure devotee's association can one become a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. When one comes to the stage of pure devotional service, the process of Shravanam Kirtanam is very essential. Shravanam Kirtanam is very essential. Can you give me an example of Shravanam and Kirtanam? Shravanam means what? Shravanam?
Listen,
Listening.
Hearing.
And
Yeah.
Kirtanam means?
Singing.
Yeah, or to glorify, right? To glorify. Kirti means basically glorify. Okay? So,
Nobody bhakti Mataji in that Shravanam and Kirtan are the first ones.
yeah, typical example is the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Where who is glorifying and who is listening?
Parikshit Maharaj Ji is listening and Shukdev Goswami is reciting.
Yes. Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshita Bhavut Vaiyasakir Kirtane. Right? We sing that in our temple. So Shri Vishnu Shravanam Parikshit Abhavut. Right? Vaiyasakir is Vyasdeva. Vaiyasakir, not Vyasdeva, Vaiyasakir is the son of Vyasdeva, which is Sukdev Goswami. So Sukdev Goswami Kirtana, he did the glorification. For how long did he do the glorification?
7 days.
7 days, exactly, right? 7 days non-stop glorification, 7 days non-stop listening. So by this, these two got, reached their ultimate destination, right?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Right.
From there only this Sapta system came up, Mataji.
Why?
That, because in North India, mostly we listen, no? That we have kept Sapta for Bhagavad-gita, Sapta for Ramayana, Sapta for... So is it... it just came to my
Are you
mind.
saying that because of this, the Saptah system has come? Was that your
Yeah.
question? I heard it wrong. I thought you were
Yes.
asking the caste system. Yes. So people mimic. And they say that Parikshit Maharaj was able to listen to this in 1 week. So we are going to give it to you also in 1 week. But what they forget is that the student has got to be like Parikshit Maharaj. And the speaker has got to be like Sukdev Goswami. And they did not go to sleep and they did not do anything for the 7 days that were there, right? And in contrast, so what people do is, and Sukdev Goswami did not charge any money. But majority of the people, they will charge you lakhs of rupees to do a Bhagavad Saptah. And then what will they pick up? They'll pick up the Rasa dance and talk about the Rasa dance for 7 days because it titillates. Right? So people, they like to hear. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. They like to hear about Krishna consciousness, but the mind is telling me like, okay, fine, Krishna consciousness, but give me the Rasa dance. I'm not ready to just listen to, this and that and don't give me the 16 elements and the 25 elements and don't give me that. Let's go straight to 10th canto. So, yeah. By executing the 9 items of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam, one is completely purified. Anya Abhlashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadhyanavritam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.11. Only then is one able to execute Krishna's order in Bhagavad Gita, which is, now one of you had mentioned that, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru, Mam Eveshyasi Satyam Te Prati Jani Priyosime. Sarvdharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshasyami Ma Sujaha. right? So here, your verse is back to you, Radhe Mataji. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. In this way, one develops his original constitutional position of rendering loving service to the Lord. One cannot be elevated to the highest platform of devotional service by karma kanda or gyan kanda. Pure devotional service can be understood and attained only through the association of pure devotees. In this regard, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that there are two types of karma kanda activities, pious and impious. Pious activities are certainly better than impious activities, but even pious activities cannot. Can you give me some example of impious activities?
Mataji, when Dushasan was derobing Draupadi, that was an impious activity.
That was impious activity. No, that is correct. But what I'm asking is that here we are talking about that there are sections of the Vedas. So there is a Karma Kanda, Gyan Kanda, Upasana Kanda. Right? The three sections of the Vedas. And so on the Karma Kanda section, right, they are saying that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, there are two types of Karma Kanda activities. There are pious activities and impious activities. So this means that you can follow some of the instructions in the scriptures and do some impious activities also. This is what it means, right? There are two types of karma kanda activities, pious and impious. So impious karma kanda activities are when people go and do black magic and things like that, right? So you are following some shastra, you're following the process, the method, the yagya, the mantra that you have to chant, right? But it is an impious activity. Pious activities are certainly better than impious activities, but even pious activities cannot bring about ecstatic love of God, Krishna. Pious and impious activities can bring about material happiness and distress. Pious and impious activities can bring about material happiness and distress, right? Distress to others. That's why we do black magic.
So
But there is no
why it is telling that pious activities can bring also distress?
Pious and impious can also bring about distress. A very good point, and I will bring up a chapter from Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'll explain that. But there is no possibility of becoming, like one example that I gave was like, if I give you $10 million, right? Will you be in distress? Any sort of distress?
Yes, Mataji, all the time.
All the time,
I have
right?
to think about what I'm going to do, how to keep the money safe.
Exactly. First, you'll think about income tax. I remember there was this lottery or whatever. I never purchased the lottery. So here, there was somebody won a $248 million lottery, right? And it was in the news and all that. I remember some 20 years ago. And so they were saying the person who won the lottery has not come forward. But when they gave the lottery number, the shopkeeper knew that this is a lottery from my shop. And he knew that these people were regular. This is an old couple. They were regular. They used to come to his shop to purchase the lottery tickets. And he knew that, they had purchased this ticket and they are not coming forward. Why do you think getting $248 million and they are not coming forward?
They could be killed.
To what?
Yeah.
They could
They
be
will be
killed,
killed.
Mataji.
They will be killed, exactly. Kidnapped. So you see, this is how pious activities can also bring you distress. But there is no possibility of one's becoming a pure devotee simply by acting piously or impiously. Bhakti, devotional service, means satisfying Krishna in every revealed scripture, whether stressing Jnana Kanda or Karma Kanda. The principle of renunciation is always praised. The ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the pure Vedic in evidence, and it says in 1.5.12, Nashkarmyam apyachutta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam uta puna shashvat abhadram ishware nacharpitam karma yadapi akaranam. Very, very powerful verse. Knowledge of self-realization, even though freed from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of conception of the infallible God. Na shobhate, it does not look well, right? If it is without connection to the Lord. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? This means that even knowledge, which is superior to fruitive activity, is not successful if it is devoid of devotional service. Therefore, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the beginning, middle, and end, Karma Kanda and Gyan Kanda are condemned. All over the Bhagavatam, it is condemned. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 112, Dharma Prohjita Kyatavotra. So Kyatava means who cheats. He's saying this is the dharma which does not cheat, right? And then Prabhupada goes on to take on some more verses there. So let me just bring up one nice and go look for it. Verse that I wanted to talk to you about why after listening to this story, which is from the Bhagavatam, you will agree that you don't want to do karmakandi, or just stay with the pious activities. Yeah. So deliverance of King Nriga. This chapter describes how Krishna released King Nriga from a curse and instructed the royal order on the danger of taking a Brahmana's property. And so let's go and read here. Shri Badarayani. Do you know who is Shri Badarayani? This is another name of Shukdev Goswami. Sri Badarayani said, "O king." So who is the king he's talking to?
Parikshit.
Parikshit Maharaj. So, O Badarayani, so Sri Badarayani said, "O king Pandesh Samba, Pradyumna, Charu, Bhanu, Gada, and other young boys of the dynasty went to a small forest to play. After playing for a long time, they became thirsty. As they searched for water, they looked inside a dry well and saw a peculiar creature. The boys were astonished to behold this creature, a lizard who looked like a hill. They felt sorry for it and tried to lift it out of the well. They caught onto the trapped lizard with leather thongs and then with woven ropes, but still they could not lift it out. So they went to Lord Krishna and excitedly told him about the creature. The lotus-eyed Supreme Lord, maintainer of the universe, went to the well and saw the lizard. Then with his left hand, he easily lifted it out. Touched by the hand of the Supreme Lord, the being at once gave up its lizard form and assumed the form of a resident of heaven. His complexion was beautifully colored like molten gold, and he was adorned with wonderful ornaments, clothes, and garlands. Lord Krishna understood the situation, but to inform people in general, he inquired as follows: "Who are you, O greatly fortunate one? Seeing your excellent form, I think you must surely be an exalted demigod. But what past activity were you brought to this condition? By what past activity were you brought to this condition? It seems you did not deserve such a fate, O good soul. We are eager to know about you, so please inform us about you, if that is, you think this the proper time and place to tell us." Shukdev Goswami said, thus questioned by Krishna, whose forms are unlimited, the king, his helmet as dazzling as the sun, bowed down to Lord Madhava and replied as follows. King Nriga said, "I am a king known as Nriga, the son of Ishkvaku." Does this name sound familiar to you?
Yes.
"Perhaps, Lord, you have heard of me when lists of charitable men are recited. What could possibly be unknown to you, O Master? With vision undisturbed by time, you witness the minds of all living beings. Nevertheless, on your order, I will speak. I gave in charity many cows." So this is pious activity or not? Sutapa.
Yes, Mataji.
"I gave in charity as many cows as there are grains of sand on the earth, stars in the heaven, or drops in a rain shower." So many cows. Young, brown, milk-laden cows who were well-behaved, beautiful, and endowed with good qualities, who were all acquired honestly and who had gilded horns, silver-plated hooves, and decorations of fine ornamental clothes and garlands. Such were the cows, along with the calves that I gave in charity. I first honored the Brahmanas, who were recipients of my charity, by decorating them with fine ornaments. Those most exalted Brahmanas whose family were in need were young and possessed of excellent character and qualities. They were dedicated to truth, famous for their austerity, vastly learned in the Vedic scriptures, and saintly in their behavior. I gave them cows, land, gold, and houses, along with horses, elephants, and marriageable girls with maidservants, as well as sesame, silver, fine beds, clothing, jewels, furniture, and chariots. In addition, I performed Vedic sacrifices and executed various pious welfare activities. Once, a cow belonging to a certain first-class Brahmin wandered away. and entered into my herd. Unaware of this, I gave that cow in charity to a different Brahmana. When the first cow's owner saw her being led away, he said, "She is mine." The second Brahmana, who had accepted her as a gift, replied, "No, she is mine. Nriga gave her to me." As the two Brahmanas argued, each trying to fulfill his own purpose, they came to me. One of them said, "You gave me this cow." And the other said, "But you stole her from me." Hearing this, I was bewildered. Finding myself in a terrible dilemma concerning my duty in this situation, I humbly entreated both the Brahmanas. "I will give you 100,000 of the best cows in exchange for this one. Please give her back to me. Your good self should be merciful to me, your servant. I did not know what I was doing. Please save me from this difficult situation, or I shall surely fall into a filthy hell." The present owner of the cow said, "I don't want anything in exchange for this cow, O king," and went away. The other Brahmana declared, "I don't want even 10,000 more cows than you are offering," and he too went away. O Lord of Lord, O Master of the universe, the agent of Yamraj, taking advantage of the opportunity thus created, later carried me into his abode. There Yamraj himself questioned me. Yamraj said, "My dear king, do you wish to experience the results of your sins first, or those of your piety? Indeed, I see no end to the dutiful charity you have performed, or to your consequent enjoyment in the radiant heavenly planets." I replied, King Nigra is saying, "First, my lord, let me suffer my sinful reactions." And Yamraj said, "Then fall." At once I fell, and while falling, I saw myself becoming a lizard, O master. "O Keshava, as your servant, I was devoted to the Brahmanas and generous to them, and I always hankered for your audience. Therefore, even until now, I have never forgotten my past life. O Almighty One, how is it that I see you here before me? You are the Supreme Lord, Supreme Soul, whom the greatest masters of mystic yoga can meditate upon with their pure hearts only by employing the spiritual eyes of the Vedas. Then how, O Transcendental Lord, are you directly visible to me, since my intelligence has been blinded by severe tribulations of material life? Only one who has finished his material entanglement in this world should be able to see you. O Deva Deva, Jagannath, Govinda, Purushottama, Narayan, Rishikesh, Punya Shloka, Achyuta, Avyaya. O Krishna, please permit me to depart for the world of the demigods. Wherever I live, O Master, may my mind always take shelter of your feet. I offer my repeated obeisances unto you, Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. You are the source of all beings, the supreme absolute truth, the possessor of unlimited potencies, the master of spiritual disciplines. Having spoken thus, Maharaj Niga circumambulated Lord Krishna and touched his crown to the Lord's feet. Granted permission to depart, King Niga then boarded a wonderful celestial airplane as all the people looked on. So this is what can happen. You know, when you're doing Karm Kandi activities, things have to be done extremely properly. And it's not like, oh, I made a mistake or I did not know, right? The king had no idea the cow had come back and he was double donating her. But this is what happens. However, there's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of leniency when we are pursuing devotional service, right? When you're doing devotional service, then it is a different story altogether, right? So that is why here, when we are talking about karma and akarma here doesn't mean that you're not doing anything, that you're sitting in one place and fine, I don't have to do anything. Actually, bhakti actually means, you know, anya abhlashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanabhitam, right? Anukulyena krishnanu sevanam bhakti. Shilanam bhakti uttama. Shilanam means you have to do work, you have to act and do some work. So that is why in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, Krishna is saying that, you know, do not get attached to not doing your work, right? But here he is trying to tell him that, you know, you karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanas cha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. Sorry, not this one. I went to the wrong verse. The one before that, which was today's verse, right? That he's saying that you have to understand, right? And he will continue to accept. Kim karma akarmeti. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. So in today's verse, he's saying, Kim karma, kim akarmeti. What is karma and what is akarma? So don't think akarma means not doing anything, right? It has got to do with the intention and for whom are you doing it, right? If you look at the, if you look at the story of Nriga, right? Something very interesting, and I wanted to point out, and I missed pointing that out to you. And Where was it? It was 9th chapter somewhere. I must have stored it here. Krishna, Nriga, yeah. Yeah, 1064, right? So here, very nicely, when Krishna is asking him, when Krishna asks him, who are you, right? Who are you? For the purpose, benefit of all of us, right? He has converted the lizard into a man, and now he's saying, who are you? And Nriga said, I'm a king known as Nriga, the son of Ishkavaku. Perhaps, Lord, you have heard of me when list of charitable men are recited. Look at this. What does it smell of? What smell do you get from here?
Arrogance.
Yes, arrogance. There's a touch of arrogance. He's here standing in front of Krishna and he's saying, perhaps you have heard about me. So I'm saying, I have heard about you, Krishna. He's saying, perhaps you have heard about me. And Prabhupada, in the purport of this verse, says very nice thing. And let me open this. Oh, here, 1064.10. He says that the Acharyas point out that although a tentative expression is used, like perhaps, right? It's tentative. Perhaps you have heard it. The implication is that there is no doubt. So he's so arrogant, right? And the Acharyas catch it. We are not able to catch it. We just stopped it and said, this is arrogance, right? Many of us might not have even noticed it, right? In the flow of the story. Some of you caught it, right? There's arrogance there. But now here the Acharya is telling us it's not even arrogance to some degree. It's the arrogance to the highest degree. There's no doubt that I am the best of the pious activity. So the karma, the actions that he was doing were not for Krishna. The actions for him were for his own sake, so that he becomes well known as a great person who gives a lot of charity, right? And then, so then he dies and he becomes a lizard there, right? And then he's even saying that, he's saying that, how is it that my eyes see you here before me and people meditate on you and I'm such a good luck that I'm seeing you and this and that and all, right? And then after that, what does he say? After seeing to Krishna, what is he saying? Please permit me to depart for the world of the demigods. Where is the world of the demigods? It's here in this material world, right? In contrast, we know the story of Surdas. He said, after these eyes have seen you, oh Lord, I don't want to see anything else. Please take away my eyesight, right? So that is the difference, the mood. And so what Krishna is saying in today's verse is that we have to understand this. I'm going to explain to you what is karma, what is vikarma. Vikarma is easy, not doing the things properly according to Sastik. But he's saying that people become bewildered when trying to determining what is action and what is inaction. And in the subsequent verses, he's going to talk to you about what is it, because we might just think that somebody did not do anything and that is that is wrong, that is bad. Why did they not take any action? Why did they do it, right? Sometimes we go and we accuse Krishna of inaction, right? Krishna, what are you doing? You're just like looking at this. Why are you not doing anything? I'm suffering here. I'm about to die. Why didn't you do anything? Why are you making me go through this? Why don't you make things better for me, right? We accuse Krishna of inaction. But then there is an action in that inaction, right? He is taking action. He is making you suffer the consequences of that or that situation so that you will ultimately be purified like that, right? So we'll talk more about that, but I'll stop here and take some reflections or questions that we have. Any points that you heard from today?
Sorry, I have a question from last week's class. So is it okay?
Yes.
It's, I'm not sure how relevant it is, but remember we were saying how Buddha was an incarnation of Krishna.
Uh-huh.
And then, how in the Far East and all these Thailand and Burma, they pray so devoutly to Lord Buddha. Are they aware that he's an incarnation of Krishna?
Some of them, few might be, so few might not be. But in Buddhism, actually, here's the thing. Again, this is an example of the same story I told you about khachidi, khichdi. The things get broken down, right? So I have been to Buddhist temples. So we had said that he came as Buddha for Pashu Jatam, right? To prevent the violence against the animals, right? And so he preached non-violence, and he said, forget the Vedas and focus on non-violence and look at the place, the nature around you, and there are trees and then there are animals, don't kill them, right? So that was, he wanted people to focus on that, right? The first and the only Buddhist temple that I went to was in Fremont here in California. And so I went, there's a Buddhist temple, very good. And they said that there'll be a feast, and so you can go there. And so in the temple, there was an open lawn, and they had arranged a feast, and all the, Buddhist restaurant owners had come and donated food for the people there, right? Except for it was not prasadam, like it was not offered to Buddha. They had just brought the food there. And guess what? There was beef, there was meat, there was eggs. This is Buddhism. So over a period of time, and such a short period of time, Buddhism came only in 3rd century BC. Right? So not many, many years ago. But see the deterioration that happens there. Right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking probably they are not aware that Buddha is an incarnation.
Incarnation, yeah. We understand that, yeah.
Because even there was an Indian serial called Buddha, and it was very, very nicely done. But there was no mention in the beginning or the end that he is one of the incarnations.
Right. And I see a lot of Indians, especially those who come over here, take to Buddhism. And it's more like a flavor. And I've noticed that when I go to Buddhist youth books here in America, when I go to people's home to give Bhagavatam sets, I see that there's always a Buddha. You enter the home and there's a Buddha. Ganesha has been replaced by Buddha. But all that we have to see is that, Buddha is also a name of Krishna, and Krishna's name is very powerful. So just as we hear in the story of Ajamila, right? Yeah. That he just took Krishna's name. So name is powerful. So are they taking the elevator? No. Are they taking the stair? Yeah. They're going to the basement and they are going to climb up again. So that's what the difference is. There.
But then when Buddhism first came into being, wasn't it at that time kind of made known that he's an incarnation?
No, it would not be made known, because the idea was because they equate Krishna with Vedas, right? Vedas to sarveraham eva vedo, right? The idea was to lure them away from Veda because they were interpreting the Vedas in the wrong manner, right? So then Krishna came in the form of Buddha and said, Nindadi yash aha shuti jatam, right? Nindati yagya vehera shuti jatam sadaya hidaya dashita pashubhatam keshavdhita buddha sharira jai jagadish hari. Right? So he's saying that Shruti means the Vedas, right? So he was ninda. He was doing ninda of the Shrutis. Why? For this hidden reason. So that is why I'm saying karma or akarma. Somebody might say that was vikarma. Buddha did vikarma, Krishna did vikarma. How can it criticize the Vedas? But that is why it's saying that it bewilders the minds of the kavis. Even the great thinkers get bewildered by understanding. Because it was a big eye-opener for me when I read through Srila Prabhupada's books that Buddha is the incarnation of Krishna.
Yeah.
The song.
Yeah.
Completely bewildered, right? So that is what it is. I was always thinking, Buddhist came, but here's the beauty of it. You see, Buddhism came, Krishna came as Buddha here, and then through the kings, Ashoka, Chandragupta Maurya, and all, it spread to the other countries, right? And then who came? Shankaracharya came, right? To bring in a little concept of God, but he said, you are God. And then after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and then taught about the Bhakti Yoga. And then now you see Buddhism is there in every place except India. You find very few Buddhists in India.
Yeah.
The country, yeah. So, and now you see there's a lot of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is preaching, and we are like that. So this exactly is the essence of today's verse, that to understand what is happening, what is not happening, right?
Thank you.
I mean, I remember I had when I was studying up in school, there was a girl who was, he always wanted to do bold things and just to attract attention and to make her point. And her younger sister used to study in the same class as me. And the younger sister used to be embarrassed by what the elder sister used to do. And so she used to come and complain and tell about that. So she says, do you know what, my elder sister was doing yesterday? We were all sitting in the living room and she brought a cigar, like this is like 14-year-old girl. So she brought a cigar and she was smoking the cigar in the living room in front of the parents. And so then I said, what happened? And then she said, what did your parents do? Because I knew my, uh, where my thought process was going. And then she said, my parents didn't do anything. My parents didn't say anything to her, right? And then at that time I was like, oh my God, how come, what kind of parents they are? They didn't say anything. So this is akarma, right? They are not doing anything. Then no action was taken. But then later on, as I grew up and I started learning about teenagers and things like that, this was the best thing that the parents did. We ignored her. What did she do? After she smoked the cigar, nobody paid any attention. Nobody scolded her. She wanted that attention. Nobody scolded her. Next time, that was the last cigar she smoked, right? In her life. Like that. So sometimes, you never know. In action, there is action. And sometimes in action, there is inaction. Right? So to understand that, even the kavis get bewildered. It's a difficult thing to understand like that, And that's what Krishna is saying, that it is difficult. Because when I'm saying karma yoga, how do I understand? What is karma yoga? I'm supposed to do karma yoga, right? How do I do karma yoga? So he'll explain karma yoga, jnana yoga, right? This is jnana yoga. And then finally, he will bring in bhakti yoga and explain that, it's better to stay there in the level of bhakti yoga and not be bewildered by others. Varshana Mataji, you have a question?
No.
Okay, so if there are no more questions or reflections, we'll call it a day on this class today. Thank you so much for joining, and so happy to see you all here.
Thank you so much, Shraddha.
Thank you so much.
Patitanam pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Gopremanande
Hari Hari.
All